Hi, I'm Bob Weir with another interview of People in the News in North Texas. My special guest today is Michael Quinn Sullivan, President and CEO of Empower Texans, a nonprofit organization that advocates for, among other things, fiscal responsibility in government. Thank you for being here, Mr. Sullivan.
I appreciate it. Nice to be with you.
If you would please tell our viewers why Empower Texans was formed and what their goals are.
So Empower Texans started with the very basic idea that better public policies result when more people are involved and engaged in the process. You know, we see that in the stock market. You know, the more people who are involved, it seems to be the better outcomes you get with companies. You know, people bringing their own background, their knowledge, their information to bear on any problem. We end up finding better solutions. So we want more folks involved in government. You know, it's very common. You hear folks talk about different interest groups want a seat at the table. We take the view that in our system of government, there's not supposed to be this table in the back room to get a seat at. Everyone should be part of the decision-making process. Sure. And that's where Empower Texans, our first and most important priority is that we get more folks involved. And along with that, we want to see folks pushing for reforms that will limit government, that will expand individual liberty, and will provide for greater freedom in the marketplace. So those are the kind of the overarching goals that we have.
During your guest appearance last month at the Flower Mound Area Republican Club meeting, you garnered a lot of attention when you talked about eliminating the property tax. How would Empower Texas go about doing that?
Well, there are several ways that you can go about attacking the property tax problem. Texas has one of the highest property tax burdens in the nation, and the Republican Party platform has called for eliminating the property tax. We at Empower Texans have taken a slightly more narrow approach in looking at the school M&O tax. It's the maintenance and operations tax that is somewhere around half to 2/3 of any particular individual's property tax bill. And so that's where we would propose, if you're going to start down the path of eliminating the property tax, start there. Because that property tax goes into this crazy Byzantine formula of funding public education. And public education, according to our state constitution, is the state's responsibility. That's the state responsibility. So you could more easily attack the school M&O. You get to other areas of, you know, how do you fund hospital districts and municipal utility districts and fire districts and other things like that. That goes back to my earlier point. This is why it's important to have more people involved in the discussion, because Michael Sullivan and Bob Weir probably don't have the answer to that, but I'm pretty sure that in our 26 million strong state, there's some pretty smart people who can figure it out. But starting down that road towards eliminating the property tax.
So you feel that a more equitable system of taxation would be based on consumption rather than property or income.
That's
So
right.
in your opinion, what percentage of sales tax would be enough to provide revenue for the state?
So when we look at this question of eventually buying down to zero the school M&O tax, a number of studies that have been done, first by former state representative Bill Keffer from Dallas County and the Texas Public Policy Foundation, really show that you could keep the state sales tax where it is today, which is 6 1/4. But by limiting the growth of government, taking that surplus, that difference between how much is raised and how much is spent, applying the surplus to property tax buy down, you could eliminate the M&O tax in about 10 or 15 years. And that would, again, cut your property taxes by half to 1/3. So there really isn't a need to go beyond the current state sales tax unless you want to be more aggressive, do it faster, or if you want to take on other portions, that's going to depend on what you're wanting to eliminate next in terms of the property. Because we don't have a property tax. We have thousands of property taxes in Texas. Every school district, every city, every municipal utility district, every hospital district, all those are all individual taxes.
But do you believe that ultimately a sales tax would be able to eliminate the property tax?
We take the view at Empower Texans that that the current sales tax with limited government spending could take care of all current state needs plus the school M&O, the maintenance and operations of our public schools.
Okay, you also say that the Republicans make up nearly 2/3 of the Texas House and Senate, therefore you feel lawmakers should be able to pass common sense reforms called for by the grassroots. How does Empower Texans stay in touch with the grassroots?
We do it through a couple of ways. Most importantly, sitting down with guys like you, traveling around the state. Me and my team, we spend most of our time not in our offices, but rather out visiting with Tea Party groups and Republican clubs.
And that's all over the state.
All over the state, yes, sir. And that's because we try to listen. We try to make sure that we're not getting ahead of where the citizenry is. Let's make sure that the policies and the ideas that we're talking about tend to be ones that people are talking about.
Michael, how about the current budget for fiscal 2017? Is there anything you want to say about that? I know it's a big question.
Yeah, well, and it's very early in the legislative process, but last legislative session, the Texas legislature, primarily driven by Dan Patrick in the Senate and Jane Nelson as the chair of finance, they did a fantastic job of constraining the growth of government. The House, on the House side, they kind of pushed the envelope and tried to spend more. The Senate kind of kept that in check. The 2018-2019 budgets, we were on 2017, the budget they're working on is for the fiscal years 2018 and 2019. The state Senate has proposed a budget that comes in actually with a reduction in spending. They have, kind of looking at the economy, looking at available revenues, they've actually found ways to reduce spending in various areas. Governor Abbott and Lieutenant Governor Patrick called for 4% across the board cuts in state agencies except for Child Protective Services. And so you have some of those ways that have already kind of programmatically been happening. So the state Senate has proposed a budget that not only reduces spending, but sets a path for keeping government constrained. The Texas House, on the other hand, the budget put forward by House Speaker Joe Straus exceeds all general revenues by a pretty significant amount, which kind of leads to the question of where do you get the extra money? If our comptroller Glenn Hager laid out how much revenue the state's going to have for this budget cycle. The Senate came in under it. The House wants to exceed it. So there are only three ways that you can get more money. You can raise taxes, you can increase debt, or you can tap into the state's economic stabilization fund or rainy day fund.
Now you mentioned Speaker Joe Straus, and your organization has been critical of him from time to time. Why is that? He's a fellow Republican. Why is that?
Look, Speaker Straus, a very affable fellow, but nonetheless, Speaker Straus, he and his leadership team came into power with the Democrats, all the Democrats with a small number of Republicans, and he's kind of maintained that power base. Now, as Speaker, despite having 2/3 of the House being Republicans, he maintains the power base of those Democrats. He and his team have thwarted a lot of the reforms Republicans have called for. We're talking about pro-life reforms, sanctuary city reforms, fiscal reforms, things we tend to focus more on. His team is what one of my guys has started referring to as Operation Slowdown. We see it even happening right now in the legislature. Just yesterday, the Texas Senate passed two of Governor Greg Abbott's priority bills. The Texas House hasn't even started meeting about legislation. We're now a month and a half into the legislative session, and the House isn't doing anything.
Yeah, it sounds like you're saying the Senate and the House are in conflict with one another.
They're definitely in conflict, although I would suggest that the conflict is not necessarily the House and the Senate, although that does kind of breed out that way. The real conflict, I would argue, is the House and the rest of Texas, the citizenry of Texas. And that's where, again, we need more citizens involved and engaged. Make sure they're talking to their state reps about the priorities they want to see passed this session.
I also want to just tap briefly on your advocacy for appraisal reform. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so when we look at property taxes, of course your property tax bill is a thing we all have to pay, but you get to the other side of the equal sign, it's two things. It's the tax rate, and then it's the valuation of the property. So the tax rate is sometimes the less important part of the equation. It's that property valuation, because we all did 7th grade math. You can drop the tax rate, but still have a higher tax bill based on the appraisals. So we would like to see more accountability in the appraisal system. It's currently very difficult for folks to approach the appraisal system. We have more elected officials, more people publicly accountable for the appraisals involved in the process. A lot of things to do there. Again, with more people involved, we're pretty confident that that problem can be solved.
Well, Michael, I'll tell you, this went fast.
It did.
I mean, it's really, we have to wrap up now, but a lot of information here, and I really want to thank you for coming over to give us this information about your organization. Sounds like you guys are hard workers. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for watching.